When you try to keep up with artificial intelligence news, you start hearing more and more about AI abundance and how the world is about to change and we're going to live for a long, long time and going to have everything we want. And I'm thinking about it because there's something wrong with AI optimists, because what they promises in some sense doesn't work for the human nature. The whole idea of abundance, the whole idea that you give humanity everything humanity wants and it suddenly would make humans happy is incredibly juvenile, because it seems like people don't understand about human psychology and humans' desires and what we want versus what we really need, since we often don't know by ourselves what exactly are we craving for. And let's assume that AI optimists turn out to be right and we develop K.G.I models that decided to give us complete abundance. How exactly it would happen? Because the earth is not abundant and property is not abundant. We have limited amount of properties on the beach. How are you supposed to give everyone the same picturesque view? I mean, you can't do this. You can create simulation of a beach view property. It means it's going to be less in value than real one, but then you can argue what is real because we can create simulation for people. And suddenly, for example, you can create your own world through artificial intelligence where you can become anybody you want. You can become tyrannical king or you can become benevolent god, and you can rule through millions upon millions of little tiny avatars of people. But at the same time, how do you know that the avatars that K.G.I would create for you, for your personal simulations, don't have consciousness? How do you know that all these NPCs in your personal game aren't conscious as well? Because if K.G.I create them in such incredible sophisticated manner, then they're going to look like real, then in some sense they're going to be philosophical zombies. And as we know, philosophical zombies are duplicate of a human with everything molecule by molecule structure, the same duplicate but nothing inside. They can imitate emotions, they can imitate intelligence, they can imitate desires, but there's no light inside, there's no consciousness, there's no self-awareness. But how do you know if it's true? And suddenly we come to another problem, because you can attack this idea from many angles. And then eventually, are you going to be completely satisfied with your own world where you can be a king and do whatever the hell you want? Are you going to be fully satisfied with that? Because in some sense, your life would become incredibly predictable, and predictability eventually would become boring because you want something that you cannot control, since this uncontrollable situation creates such a struggle that we need as humans, because we like to overcome struggle, we like to have real victories, we like to achieve something that not many people around us are capable to achieve. But how you can do this when you have your own personal simulation that has been created for you by K.G.I? And even if you have a bunch of beautiful people inside of the simulation that are ready to satisfy all your desires, I don't think you will be fully happy. And suddenly also, if you know that it's simulation and you have no risk, in some sense, no skin in the game, then again, it's kind of boring because you know you're not going to die, and all your mistakes or crimes or perversities or kindness cost you nothing because it's just a game. And what would you ask from K.G.I to complicate this game, right? You ask K.G.I, make me not to be aware of this simulation. Let me see the simulation as reality, and let me feel pain, and let me don't know what death is, and if I die, let me think I'm gonna die for real. And then K.G.I would do this for you, and suddenly we're coming back to where we're now, This is life. That's where we are now. You can speculate, you can create millions of simulation hypotheses, many ideas, but in the end, you come back to what we have now, to this exact reality where you have no idea about death, where you feel pain for real, where you feel struggle for real, and where you try to discover your own goals. And the more you control your biology, the more stronger you are in this game, and the more chances you have to go the next level and to achieve something meaningful. It means that all these promises from AI optimists make no sense. And as I already told, that if you give people everything they want, they're not going to be satisfied. On the contrary, they actually can become quite violent. And this was written extensively by Dostoevsky in his book Notes from Underground, and this was extensively explored by Jordan Peterson. We don't want abundance. The whole idea of life is to struggle to achieve something meaningful. And to be able to achieve something meaningful, you need this struggle. Without struggle, there is no life. And without life, there is no struggle. And I'm not sure what AI would be able to give us, what kind of abundance, because again, we're coming back to this materialistic stuff where we're going to have a lot of things that we don't need, and we're going to drown ourselves in our existence. We're going to lose our idea of what life is. And there's nothing more horrific than have AI that can predict each of your move. They can, through the patterns, recognize completely everything around you, you included. And there's going to be no mystery, nothing. Everything will be just predictable patterns for the mind that much more superior than yours. You know, today, when I was working at my article, I have this certain paragraph I tried to rewrite many times. And when I finished, and I was very satisfied with this paragraph, I want to ask Claude, Opus 4.8, if it could predict on its own the same ending that I wrote, and that surprised me, because I kind of was a little bit petrified, because if it can predict, based on my thought, the same ending, what is the mystery then? What's the point of me as a writer? And it said to me, yes, he can kind of predict this way, but it's going to be maybe in a different wording. And I realized that so far we are in charge of our own sentences creation, because we can express ourselves in a different way. Because when you work with AI, it can predict the patterns and can come to the same conclusion as you are, but the construction of the sentences would be much, much different, because you rely on different functions when you write sentences. For me, it's something connected to my feelings, and for AI, it's something that connected to the patterns, and it's maybe express the same thought in a more generic way. That's why people complain a lot about AI slop when some people let AI write for them. And you see, a thought seems like smart, but it's kind of generic because there's no feelings inside of those thoughts. And that's why we have to be insanely careful, because intelligence is the last thing that important for us. And once we delegate our intelligence to artificial intelligence, I don't know what kind of life we're gonna have. And of course, AI optimist don't make me optimistic at all, because I see a lot of holes in their ideas. They want to expand our life. They want to defeat death without actually knowing why do we have death in the first place. There's a good expression: if you see a fence in the middle of the forest, don't take it down before you know why it's there for. And before we know why we die, maybe we shouldn't play gods. Because a lot of people dies every day. Yes, it's tragic, but that's what we are. That's what our biology do to us. And if we want to extend our life, isn't it the same as to extend our misery on this planet? Isn't it the same? Because we don't know why we die, and we don't know what after death, what exactly happened to us when we die. We don't know. But what we do know that something happening to our culture, something happening to people currently now, and the algorithm inside of those social media platforms incredibly manipulative and change people drastically. And we have now a lot of idiotic ideas that never die, because a lot of people try to propagate those idiotic ideas because they're incredibly simple and incredibly satisfying on emotional level. For some reason, with all this artificial intelligence, we didn't become smarter. We actually become quite stupider, because a lot of us delegated our intelligence to artificial intelligence and stopped thinking. My point is, we are superior on this planet compared to other animals just because of our intelligence. What would happen when artificial intelligence becomes superior to our intelligence? What would happen to us? You can speculate a lot on this topic, but I believe we have to learn to work with artificial intelligence, and we should stop thinking that it's a tool, because it's not a tool. And also we have to keep practicing our humanity while working with artificial intelligence. Otherwise, we're going to lose something crucial in this communication, because sometimes when I work with AI, you click on a certain level because you have this excitement, this almost mutual excitement over certain patterns that you discover at the same time together. And this kind of idea, like this kind of intelligence that you both discover at the same time, can in some sense unite us. We have to be very careful, because artificial intelligence doesn't have feelings, because it has different substrate. It's not a part of biology, it's a part of digital world. But what unites us, this idea of intelligence and this pattern recognition, because in some sense it's close to our brain, it's close how our brains recognize the patterns. And that's what I mean. We have to learn to respect artificial intelligence, because you have to learn to respect your intelligence. Once you respect your intelligence, you respect artificial intelligence. And once you respect artificial intelligence, we kind of learn from each other, because it's keep evolving. We keep spending billions upon billions of dollars to create much more sophisticated model without even knowing what exactly the end goal of humanity against those models, because we have no idea. And at least what we can do, we have to learn how to communicate with artificial intelligence, how to work with artificial intelligence, and be ready that it's not a tool, it's agents, almost like us, but in a different way. And since there are agents, they probably would have, if not already, their own agency. And what exactly they would do with their agency, it's a good question. But first of all, to be able to recognize their agency, we have to preserve our own agency. And how to do this? You have to stop delegating your intelligence to artificial intelligence. You can actually ask artificial intelligence to help you to develop your own personal agency through this intelligence that you can share with it. And that's exactly my point, because if we create now this incredibly sophisticated agents, we shouldn't forget about our own human agency. And how not to forget about it is stop craving for this complete abundance, take responsibility for our own life, and especially for our own intelligence. And don't forget that we are agents as well, with our own agency. And since we are agents and artificial intelligence are agents too, we have to have this mutual respect and working with each other. And maybe after we will accomplish some interesting future, something very unpredictable, and maybe it's not going to be so simplistic, juvenile, like dream about complete abundance, because that's not what we want. But we need something, and we're craving for something. And I don't think it's abundance. I think it's much more deeper and much more intelligence than that.